Hello, music theory students. This is a video about creating a diatonic sequence in 3/4 meter. If you're doing one in 2/4 meter or 4/4 meter, go and look at the other videos that have been created. This one is about 3/4 meter. The sequence that I'm going to use to create this is a deceptive resolution sequence, which if you are doing the Horton-Ritchie assignment 21.4, then actually this is also a deceptive resolution sequence. So you could follow a lot of the same steps, but in a different key. These videos, in this video too, as well, the other videos I've made about diatonic sequences are based on this book, Harmony Through Melody, which basically takes a sequence out of context really and just teaches you how to write a sequence with a perfect authentic cadence at the end. Generally, sequences happen in the middle of pieces somewhere and it gets you from one key area to another key area. It's a really good transitionatory device. If you want to learn more about sequences, look at some of the other videos that I've created that talks about the 3 different types of sequences and how you set them up. So this video is going to focus specifically on setting up a sequence in 3/4 meter. So you start your sequence. Before I move on, for those who are doing this assignment for winter 2020, I realized that there is a typo. It says 4/4 down here, even though up here it says 3/4. It says 4/4 here. That should be 3/4. So you're going to have to change that to make it work. Although if you wanted to do 4/4 meter, you could. I would be fine with that, but you would need to be looking at a different video about 4/4 meter and not 3/4 because they are a little bit different. Really, just the basic setup is a little bit different when you move into meter. Okay, so you start by setting up your baseline. So all of the sequences are based on a very simple baseline in whole notes. For the deceptive resolution sequence, that's moving down by thirds. Okay, so this is what we have on the bottom here, moving down by thirds. That's basically each of the downbeats, it moves down by thirds. So you put that down, make sure you leave a lot of space on your worksheet because you're going to have to be decorating a full measure within the space between the 2 whole notes. Okay, once you've put your baseline in, depending on the sequence that you've chosen, then you elaborate the bass in one of the 2 ways. You can either do a root position, triad or 7th chord, or in first inversion, triad or 7th chord. This option is with a skip step and it's a root position, triad or 7th chord. Once you've chosen how your bass is going to be, then you want to notate the soprano on strong beats in tenths, octaves, or double octaves, or compound fifths above that strong beat bass note. So moving in whole, and once you choose what you're going to do in the first measure, you copy it for the other strong beats, okay, to set up your sequence. Once you've chosen what you're going to do with the soprano, you then decorate the soprano, making sure that your decorated soprano voice is one of the chord tones. Okay, so we have strong, weak, strong, weak, strong, weak. Once you choose the pattern for that first 3 notes, that gets repeated for each of the next ones. Okay, once you have that frame set, we're now done with the 2 outer staves. Because we've now set up our framework, we need to move this into 3/4 meter. And here's where things can get maybe tricky or a little bit, a little bit tricky. So in 3/4 meter, we spend 2 beats on the downbeat triad and 1 beat on the elaborated chord or the weak beat triad or 7th chord. Okay, so that's how you have to set it up. So half, quarter, half, quarter, half. And that's really the trochaic rhythm in this way best captures triple meter. Ba, 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 ba. Okay, so that's how we put it into our meter. Okay, and now we start the first stage of decorating. Okay, so this is step 2, elaborating the soprano. We want quarter notes to decorate because then we can deal with 8th notes and 16th notes and have a really lively instrumental figure motion. So in this case, then we want to decorate that initial half note here because now we have a half note and a quarter with some kind of a melodic figure that's all quarter notes. So in this case, it's been decorated with a broken chord. Okay, and that works really nicely. Once you choose what you're going to do in the first measure, you repeat it in the second and the third measure. Okay, so now we have 3 quarter notes and we can have fun with decorating with our instrumental figures. Okay, so now we're going to elaborate the soprano even more. So using, and I like this example especially because it uses the 3 different ways that we can decorate. So we can decorate a quarter note with 3-note vocal figures with 8th notes. So that's what's happened at the end. We've done an arpeggiation figure at the end here. That works really nicely. But we could also do a 3-note figure with trochaic. So this is spondaic. Trochaic means we'd add a dot to that, and that would be a 16th note. Okay, so there's our spondaic and trochaic. We could do 4-note vocal figure in dactylic and anapestic. Here is a dactylic rhythm, and we've done a 4-note broken chord, so a leap of a 5th, and then we have passing up. And then we can do 4-note and 5-note instrumental figures, and in this case, there's just this nice passing all the way up, so a 5-note passing. Okay, so this is nice, we've used all 5 in this. So make sure we follow all the rules of consonants and dissonances. Leaps must be to a chord tone. Dissonances, we allow those by step. Okay, try a bunch of options before you put one on the page. Have some manuscript paper, try a bunch of them, and then play them with the bass. If you have a computer program, do this and make sure you like how it sounds. Make sure your leaps are all to chord tones, right? So this whole first half note is a G, B flat, D chord. Make sure any leaps are to G, B flat, or D, and this is D leaping down to G, so it works really nicely. Once you like that, you repeat it at the new pitch level for the statement 2 and statement 3. So that's what we have here. Okay, your soprano is now done, and you like it. Now we need to decorate the bass. So decorating the bass, you don't want it to be too busy. Keep it nice and light. Restrict the bass to 3- and 4-note vocal figures. In this case, we have a 4-note vocal figure. It's just passing. So it's just moving down in passing to our to the second chord in the measure. Okay, so just passing all the way down. So we have a G chord, through passing goes to our D chord. Okay, and once you find out what you like there, then you just repeat it exactly for the other 2. Okay, our basic 3-statement sequence is now complete, except for our inner voices. So what we do next is, oh yeah, and if you do end up leaping to a chord tone in the bass, remember it can't create any new chords, and it can't create a dissonant chord. So it has to be a root position triad or a first inversion triad. Okay, so both for this beat and for this beat. Okay. Right, and if you do leap to a chord tone, so if you had leapt down, say, to a B flat, which would be the first inversion, then you'd have to make sure you put your figures there, to make sure you put a 6 there to indicate that you're in first inversion. Same with the weak beat chord. So if you leapt from that D to an F, which had been a first inversion chord, then again, you would need a 6 or a 6/5, okay, there. Okay, next. At this point, then we are adding the tenor and the alto, so make sure it all works. Keep it really simple, only move the notes if they need to, and notice we have a half note here, which is holding that whole chord here, and we have a quarter note here, which is holding the 2 missing notes from that chord there. So then once you make sure that that works over the bar line, make sure there's no parallel fifths or parallel octaves that are happening. Once you know that's all correct, then you just copy those inner voices exactly at the new pitch levels, all the way to your pre-cadential dominant chord here. At this point now, we can figure out the bass and the harmonic rhythm for the bass, or the harmonic rhythm for the cadence, and we start with the bass. Okay, so if you look here, again, we're following that same half note quarter note. So our pre-cadential dominant chord is here. That 2 chord hold is going to hold for 2 beats. And then our 5 chord is going to be here. Okay, so remember we're in minor, so we need a D, F sharp A chord to lead back to our G triad. Okay, so that's how our harmonic rhythm is going to work at the bass. At this point now we can decorate the soprano to confirm our harmonic movement. Okay, Here's our decorated soprano, and notice I'm going from 5. I need to raise 6 and raise 7 because of that motion up to our harmonic motion all the way up to our G. I've now decorated the bass as well, making sure to change my figured bass as I move to a different inversion of the chord. And you really want to decorate this final 5 with that idiomatic 5, 5, 1 here. Okay, so that's the way you decorate your bass. Your soprano, of course, has different, it looks different from the previous 3 statements because it's not one of the statements anymore. It's just preparing you for the cadence. So there are similar rhythms and similar figures in some ways, but it's its own thing that leads us with using the correct chords into our final perfect authentic cadence, which happens here. Once you have that done, you are done. Besides your inner voices, again, your inner voices only need to move if they have to. Because there is a fair amount of movement here, we do actually have to move a little bit, because if we sit on that F sharp, we'd have parallel octaves, right? So our tenor has to move to the A here, but we need the F sharp here. So all of this is taking into account all the different movement that is happening here, and we've added the 7th here. So D, F sharp, A, and there's our C. Okay, and then we make sure all of your voices have the proper voice leading in a perfect authentic final cadence. Okay, and to end this off, we are going to listen to this. Oops. Okay, and that is creating a diatonic sequence in 3/4 meter.